You're listening to Market the Brew, a leading resource for promoting and marketing craft beer. Join in as we share with you, straight from the source, tools and strategies craft brewers from around the country are using right now to achieve significant success.
It's good to be here. Thanks for coming.
So we would like to know a little bit about how you got into brewing here at Gathering Place, how it all began.
Well, like a lot of second and third wave breweries, I started as a home brewer. So I started sharing beer with family and friends, and they kept saying, "Hey, this is great, you should sell it." And I kept saying, "You are drunk and drinking for free in my kitchen." So I started doing competitions where people who weren't my friends were drinking it and started getting good feedback and started winning awards. And then in 2013, my wife and I were living in Washington, D.C. at the time, and I put beer into a competition that was put on by Sam Adams, and I was one of the winners.
Wow.
And that was the push we needed to feel like, hey, maybe there's something here. So I shifted from learning about how to make beer to learning about the business side of things. So on my days off from my job, I would go to local breweries, I would ask questions, I participated in some brew days, and it was really great to see that side of the industry. So in 2014, I did the Sam Adams again, and again I was one of the winners. And then a few months after that, we moved back to Milwaukee and started laying the groundwork for this. So it's been a fun journey. Lots of ups and downs along the way, but there always is with small business.
And it's cool to hear like how you began, and then through your social medias, I've seen like the home brewing competition. You have people join you on brew days and things, so it kind of comes full circle. It's kind of cool how you give back that way.
Yeah, we want to stay close to our roots, and brewing at this scale is very different than home brewing. I don't do the brewing here, even though I have, and I know how to work everything, and I have done all those things, but there's so much science involved at this scale that in order for it to work well, I knew I wanted to hire a professional brewer. And Corey is our head brewer, and he's from just outside Milwaukee. He's a UWM grad, and then he went west. And he was brewing professionally in Portland and Seattle for about 17 years before I hired him. So he brings a lot of experience and kind of wealth of knowledge. And I think that's one of the reasons why we had really good quality beer from day one. And that's important because there's a lot of great breweries in Wisconsin.
Right.
And so if you're not putting out a good product, people might come once, but they're not going to come again.
Yeah.
So having that quality product is super important, and that comes from an experienced brewer.
Yeah. And then we're sitting in like your Riverwest location. What made you choose this area for your first location?
So the name of the brewery, Gathering Place, that comes from the Potawatomi word Milwaukee, which means gathering place by the waters. So I wanted the name to reflect our city, but for that to happen, we needed to be located in the city. It doesn't make sense to name it that if we're 30, 40 minutes outside of town. So I was really looking at the Riverwest, Walker's Point, and Bayview neighborhoods, and I worked with a commercial real estate agent for about 7 months. It took a long time to find this space, but breweries need a couple things. They need tall ceilings because breweries get bigger by getting taller tanks. So this building we're in right now was built in 1949 as a Frigidaire factory. So they used to make freezers and fridges here. 20-foot ceilings. It's got a loading dock. Those are all great things for breweries. And Riverwest is a really tight-knit community, neighborhood. So where we are right now is at the north end of the neighborhood in what's called the Riverworks district. And so it's about 4 square blocks of light industrial buildings. So we are just off the beaten path, and yet at the end of the block is housing in that direction and in that direction, and you cross the river at the end of the street, and then you're in Shorewood and the east side of Milwaukee. So we are very close to lots of things, even though we have some freedom with this location. Like, we shut down the street once a month for block parties. There's no way we could do that if we were on Brady Street or something. So there's some pros and cons to being where we're at, but the neighborhood has been very supportive.
Yeah. How many barrels, I guess, would you say you produce per year here?
In 22, we did just shy of 600, and in 23, we're on track to do probably about 850.
And then
So-
you guys self-distribute then here too?
Yes,
right?
yes, we self-distro, and we have since the beginning. It is hard, but we have found it to be worth it.
Yeah.
Being small and being self-distributed, a lot of that is based on relationships. So I am still the salesperson.
Right.
We have another salesperson who covers the suburbs, and we go from Kenosha to Sheboygan and west to Madison. But in those early years, it was me pounding the pavement, and those relationships that we built with bar owners, restaurant owners, managers, those people are still our customers today. And so I think when breweries of any size want to get into distribution, it's very easy to sign with a distributor, and you think like, oh, well, your salespeople are now my salespeople, so you just go sell it and make it happen. But it doesn't usually work out well, and I feel like the time that we have spent building those relationships has paid off, especially in those early years when we were new. The reason that we grew so quickly was because the buyer at this restaurant said, oh, you should go see this person and sample, tell them I sent you. And so that word of mouth and people kind of vouching for our product and saying, this is good, go take it here. And we grew on draft very quickly. And then we started putting beer in cans in the summer of 2019, which was just great coincidence. We were already on the shelves when and had relationships with liquor stores when COVID hit. And cans are the only reason we're still here.
Wow.
It was very tough, but having beer in cans and having it on those shelves is what kept the lights on.
Yeah. And then how often does like a canning line come here? Because you guys don't have like the canning line here or anything.
We do.
Oh, you do now?
Yes.
'Cause I remember coming here and you didn't at the one point.
That's right. So we started with a mobile canner, Will Craft, out of Oak Creek, and they were great to work with. And we worked with them through the middle of 2020.
Okay.
But with COVID, we were doing so much volume in cans that one day I ran the numbers, and it made more sense for us to have our own canning line than to continue paying them. So we did buy a canning line in 2020.
Nice.
And it came in October, and I would say we are canning probably once a week.
Okay.
So the beer stays nice and fresh. As soon as it's done, we package it. Mobile canning is great. It helped us launch, but it can be hard to get on their schedule. So if you have to wait to your canning day, you might have finished beer that's in the tank, but you can't move it until canning day, which means you can't put new beer into that tank. So it kind of, our production schedule is so much more, well, it gives us a lot more flexibility, and things just run more smoothly, because when it's done, we package it and we're on to the next beer.
That's nice. Now that you opened this, now you opened a new location in Tosa. What made you interested in that location?
So I'd been interested in a second location for a couple years. We love where we are here in Riverwest, but we are the only retail business in this stretch. So all of these buildings are full, but those employees leave at 5 and they're not here on the weekends. So we have people come and they're like, wow, this place is abandoned. It's like, no, like come here at noon on a Thursday and there's semi trucks going everywhere.
Yeah.
So wanted a location with a bit more foot traffic, and so we started exploring that, and we thought we were going to open in Bayview. We still have plans to be part of a food hall that is in the process of being built. The things are moving very slowly with that developer, and so we already had it in our mind that were looking for the second location. All the plans were ready and just on the shelf waiting to go. So when I read the news articles last July that the Stockhouse owners were interested in stepping back and wanting to see if any of the minority shareholders were going to take over the business, I reached out. We have a relationship with Aaron. They had actually been serving our beer at Stockhouse for the last couple of years.
Wow.
If they ran out of their own stuff, they would give us a call. So we have this relationship. Their customers were already familiar with us, and things did not work out with their investors. And we had a conversation and got to a place where everyone was happy. And Wauwatosa has been super supportive to us over the years, and where we are at 72nd and North Avenue is perfect. There are 6 restaurants on our block on both sides of the street. There are other breweries in the neighborhood, and just that stretch of North Ave there's a lot of energy. So the things that we don't have here in terms of foot traffic and visibility, we do have at that location. It is smaller than this, so it holds about 60 people inside, but behind the building is a patio space that could hold about 80.
Wow.
Which we don't really have outdoor space here. So we are really excited for spring and summer to come around and really take advantage of that patio.
Well, and we were super excited too because we saw that Stockhouse was leaving, which we were sad about, but then we saw you guys were opening there, Lion's Tail was opening, and we kind of live on the west side of Milwaukee, so it's closer to us. I'm like, wow, we should move to Tosa, like all the breweries are going there.
Yeah, it's, people ask like about competition among breweries and I think in Milwaukee we're in a good spot where it's a more collaborative approach. So in our neighborhood here, we were the 4th brewery to open in Riverwest. There's Black Husky Company and Lakefront. And a 5th one opened up about a year ago, Amorphic, which is just around the corner from us. And we have been working together for years. We created what's called the Riverwest Brewery Syndicate. We gave out punch cards to if you buy one beer at each of our places, you get another one for free at one of them.
Wow.
And then so it's this collaboration that works really well. So move on over to Tosa, and on North Avenue there are 4 breweries. From Venture, the Fermentorium, Taproom, us, and then Lion's Tail opened up. So we have a similar collaborative approach over there. And we've been talking, it's just with the holidays we need to pump the brakes a little bit, but those 4 breweries on North Avenue, we've been having conversations about how we can do something similar to what's happened here in Riverwest. And if I'm being honest, the neighborhood really loves it. And we know that we share customers. So they might be at our tap room on a Monday, Black Husky on another day, and go to the Fish Fry Company on Friday. So they were really excited to see us working together, and they like visiting all of our places.
And we've noticed that too, like as customers, how tight-knit Milwaukee is. It's not so competitive, it really is supportive. Like, you don't always see that with businesses. And just as a customer, it's kind of nice to go into breweries that are different, but then they also they share about their experiences, like how the owners visit other breweries, or you see the owners at other breweries, and it just feels like a tight-knit community here in Milwaukee. So it's really exciting to be a part of that.
Yeah, I agree. The Riverwest group started because we genuinely like hanging out with each other.
Yeah.
And so we would get together once a month at somebody's place. We would rotate around, and we would just have a beer and just talk. And then occasionally, like in the last 5 minutes, we'd say like, oh, we should probably like talk about this event or the collaboration beer we're gonna do. And my wife would jokingly call it like, how was your therapy session? Except that's kind of what it was. It was really nice to be able to say like, hey, I'm struggling with this thing. You guys have dealt with it. Like, how did you do it? And especially as our first couple years, it was really nice to be able to have that space to talk to them about it and get feedback. And then it developed into, now we do quarterly collaboration beers and just a couple months ago in October, we launched this bus service that takes people around to the different breweries on Saturdays. It's free. It runs for 5 hours, and you can hop on or off at any of our breweries. And, we've seen really good response from that. There was a lot of buzz and attention when we announced it, but then we've also seen an uptick in customers on those Saturdays. So it is accomplishing what we want it to, of bringing people to the neighborhood, stay in the neighborhood, visit. But at the same time, because it's free and it runs every week, there isn't this pressure of like, I have to visit all 5 in the same day. Because we want people to be responsible. We don't want them to try to do that because we want them to come back the next week. Just visit 1 or 2, then come back. We want people to use this service responsibly.
Yeah.
But it's so smart too, like as customers you always, like at least we do, we always try to visit a couple breweries in the area at a time. And it's so nice not having to drive.
Yeah.
You just hop on the bus and it takes you where you need to go, and you kind of become friends with the people on the bus too.
Yeah.
You start to get to know each other and you share a beer, and it's really awesome. It's a great idea.
Yes, and a lot of credit to Ron from Amorphic. We'd been talking about something like this for a while, but Ron actually made it happen. And it's worked really well. And the other thing that makes it work well is we're the furthest brewery north, and Lakefront's the furthest south, and it's just 2 miles. Wow. So you have 5 breweries in 2 miles. So it's a really tight, 25-minute loop.
Okay.
So if you miss it, you're not waiting like an hour to hop on the bus again. So it works because we are really closely located together.
Well, it's such a smart idea. Have you had other breweries kind of reach out to ask if you can make a pit stop and add them to the list?
I don't know if other breweries, but I think there had been some other businesses. We just kind of keeping it to the breweries at this point. But that's not to say you walk and eat at this restaurant next door, and then you can come back on the bus. So I think other businesses benefit by having more people in the neighborhood on Saturdays. So we're happy they can share in the success as well.
And it's such a smart idea. I feel like just Milwaukee being so spread out in such a big city, I could see other areas wanting to do something similar.
We've had a lot of people request that for Tosa.
Okay.
And we are exploring that. That might be one of those things I mentioned kind of got on the back burner with the holidays, but stay tuned.
That's exciting.
That is very exciting.
So having different locations and multiple locations, did you have a set opening date for your Tosa location? And did you actually open on that date, or did you have to kind of work around it? We initially thought that we would open at the end of September. And I should say we closed on the deal and announced it at the end of August. And I thought a quick turnaround was going to be possible because it was already an existing brewery. We didn't have to install a bunch of equipment. We didn't have to build a bar. Everything was there. We did some painting and some cosmetic changes, but it was already a tap room. So I thought that quick turnaround would be good. Ran into some slight hurdles with the city and licensing. So I had to file a license that had to go before the city council, but you have to get on their calendar 6 weeks before the actual meeting. Okay. So that meant we couldn't open in that 4-week period. So we moved from the end of the target opening at the end of September to the opening end of October. So it wasn't a very long delay, and things with the city moved very quickly. I went to the council meeting, and I was all prepared to answer any questions they had about parking or noise levels, and no one asked a single question. And I was out in 5 minutes, and I'm happy no one had any objections, but at the same time, I'm like, oh, okay. Having that extra couple weeks was actually a really good thing. It gave us a little more time to get our staffing in place, and it meant that those
cosmetic improvements didn't have to happen super fast. Because with opening the second location, we essentially doubled the size of our staff. We are still a small company, so altogether there's 5 full-time employees and 8 or 9 part-time employees. But when you go from a team of 7 or 8 to a team of 15, like you're bringing new people on board. You need to make sure that they're trained up, and that the company culture that we have here is the same over there. And doing that, even in the 6 weeks that we did it, was rushed. But we've got a great team, and Tosa has been very welcoming to us, so we're really excited to be there.
And I was kind of curious, so a lot of breweries we've talked to that have multiple locations kind of say each brewery has their own identity or their own focal point. What would you describe both of your breweries as? Like, are they the same? Are they a little different? Or I know the new location's new, so maybe it hasn't defined itself yet.
Yeah, that's a good point. I feel like it's learning,
Yeah.
and we are learning. I would describe our Riverwest location as being very industrial. It is in an old factory, and this is the main production facility. So when you come here, it's the exposed beams, it's concrete floors, high ceilings, but at the same time there is a lot of wood in here and softer tones to kind of balance those things. Tosa, on the other hand, is more retail, and so when we did the taproom refresh, we went with bright colors, lighten it up. One whole wall that runs the length of the building, of the inside of the building, is a mural of the Tosa neighborhood, and that was there when it was Stockhouse, and we knew we absolutely wanted to keep that. It was such an awesome piece of their space, and we worked with the artist to kind of touch it up and put our name and logo on there. But that I feel is more, well, with the patio out back, that is a big focal point, and we've tried to market that and brand that as our Tosa taproom and patio, and we try to put all that. Anytime we talk about it, we do the full name, because you can't see the patio from North Avenue, so we really are trying to reinforce with people the patio part of that. And as we come out of winter and into spring, we're going to be doing a lot on our social media around the improvements we're making to the patio, because right now there is some seating out there. There's not really tables, it's just used barrels as the tabletops, which is great, but we want to go a little step further. We want to plant some flower beds, we want to do some outdoor lighting, speakers, some kind of canopy or cover, and then there is a big blank Cream City brick wall out there that I would love to do an outdoor mural as well.
Oh, that'd be cool.
So we're actually in the next couple weeks going to do a couple kind of community listening sessions to get folks from the neighborhood to tell us what they want to see on that patio, and then work to make it happen for spring. Which around here, spring, it could be between March and July. So we've got a bit of a window to finish the patio, but we want to have that input from the people who are gonna be using it.
Yeah, so we talked a little bit about the brewery shuttle.
Yeah.
So the next point I wanted to make was just your community outreach programs. You do a lot for your community in this area and in Milwaukee in general. And I think my favorite one had to be the clothing swap you guys did. I think you did like a vinyl swap, you did a book swap, and there was a clothing one. And I remember like there was a post on social media just saying bring all your used clothing.
The day or two before.
And then you could come and like shop for new outfits. And I told Travis, and I was like, hey, do you want to go do a clothing swap? And he's like, no, I'll sit out. I was like, it's at Gathering Place Brewing. He's like, okay, I'll come.
Yeah.
I'll come drink beer.
Yeah.
And it was amazing how many people were here. And I mean, I was shopping for myself, and I thought it was a great idea just to get new clothing and new wardrobe. But then I ran into someone here, and she was saying how she's a teacher in the area, and she was shopping for clothes for her students. And my mind was just blown by how impactful that event was, and I didn't even think about it until she had talked to me about it.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so she was shopping for her high school students and finding new clothes for them and getting them ready for job interviews.
Wow.
And I was like,
awesome.
oh, I'm gonna cry if I have another beer. So
Yeah.
it's really impactful how much your business does for this community.
Well, the community has done a lot to support us from the beginning, but that really came through when COVID happened and we were shut down. Our tap room was shut down. So we make money 3 ways. People come here, we sell beer to bars and restaurants, or we sell cans to grocery stores. And when COVID hit, our tap room was shut and all the bars and restaurants were shut. So 3 legs of that stool got kicked out overnight. And people really rallied and came to get curbside deliveries and things. So that is something that I won't forget. But kind of circling back to your questions, my wife and I come from the nonprofit world. That's where we spent my career. My wife still is in the nonprofit world. So from the first iteration of the business plan, we had as part of our mission that we would donate at least 1% of our sales to local institutions. And that's a difference between sales and profits. So we're taking it off the top that this is something we're saying is important enough to us that it's on page 1 of the plan. And one of the ways that we do that is through our weekly One for Milwaukee program, where every Thursday $1 of beer, $1 from each beer sold goes to a partner organization. Before COVID, we used to do it. We used to change partners each week, and then with COVID and since, we have shifted to doing monthly partners. So that way, if you have one Thursday that's great and one that's not, it kind of evens it out over the month and make sure that they get like a decent donation. Now that we have 2 tap rooms, we're hoping that we are doubling that impact of that Thursday program. So I think this month it is the Golden Retriever Rescue of Wisconsin. And so in a couple weeks they are bringing some of the dogs here. But we've worked with Hunger Task Force and all kinds of others. And it accomplishes a couple of things. 1, it helps us stay true to our mission. 2, it brings in different members of our community who might not be beer drinkers, might not know we exist. And so that's always nice to get new folks in the tap room and kind of make those connections. There are other programs, like you mentioned, the clothing swap. We were super overwhelmed by that. And I have to give all the credit to that to our marketing associate at the time, Caitlin. She came up with this idea, and I was like, are people really gonna wanna wear other people's clothes? And she's like, yes. This place was full of bags and bags of clothes, and Caitlin roped in some friends to help sort it all. And we were not prepared for the number of people that showed up that day. So it was really, really cool.
All right, so how did carrying the G become a thing? How did Gathering Place get to make the beer instead of like a Green Bay beer?
This is
or a Green Bay brewery, I guess I should say.
Sure. This was a really fun project, and it goes back to relationships.
Yeah.
Like I was mentioning, we were talking about before. So there is a wine store in Shorewood on Oakland called Scout Wine, and they serve our beer, and we have this great relationship with them. It's a husband and wife, and the husband, many years ago, used to live in New York, and he had 2 roommates, and those 2 roommates, and he started a Packers blog, that turned into Cheesehead TV. So
gosh.
Corey and Aaron Nigler. So they all three used to live together. And Corey now lives in Green Bay, and Aaron's still in New York. And they have quite the following.
They do.
They do. So they had this trademark for the phrase "carry the G," which Aaron Rodgers said in a press interview a couple years ago, and these guys hopped on it. So they had this trademark, and they needed to use it, and so they wanted to make a beer. So they were asking their friend, who owns a wine store, and in theory has some connections to the alcohol world, and so Luke said, "I know just the people."
Aw.
That's awesome.
So they came down. We tried a bunch of beer. We figured out, like, is this something that we could do? Because these conversations were happening in August, and the season was starting very quickly. So we got it all hammered out, and Corey has this friend who is a graphic designer. His day job is he is an illustrator for Marvel.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Again, relationships. It helps to know talented people.
Right.
So they worked up a really awesome can design, and we figured out the beer that we wanted to make, and we got it ready to go, and it got out to market the week of the home opener. So it turned around super fast. We thought we were going to make just 1 or 2 batches, and we ended up making like 2 or 3 batches a month. And we could not keep it in stock. As soon as, we'd drop off 20 cases to the Woodman's in Green Bay, and it was gone the next day.
Oh my gosh.
So there are a lot of my accounts in the city of Milwaukee that I didn't even have a chance to get it to because they were going through so much. And one of the things that was important to the Cheesehead guys is that we want this in Green Bay and the Fox Valley, which we had not distributed up there before. So it was a bit of an expansion for us. Luckily, we already are in store locations of Woodman's and Festival Foods. So they have a lot of those stores in that part of the state. So we were already in the system. So it made accomplishing this in a short amount of time, it made it possible. So we thought we would be making and selling this beer through February because we thought they would be going far in the playoffs. And the last game of the season is tonight. And I really do hope they go far in the playoffs, but we also don't want this beer sitting on the shelves in April.
Yeah.
The product is fine. Like the beer freshness isn't going to be a concern, but I think when football season ends, it's we're on to the Brewers.
Yeah.
So we just want to have this beer during the season.
Okay.
When we do it next year, we'll have it ready for preseason. we'll have it out in August. But it's been a great partnership. It's super fun to get to know and work with those guys. But we've been getting phone calls and emails from all across the country and abroad asking us to ship the beer. And every time I have to say, we are not legally allowed to ship beer, so we cannot do that. But their reach is far and wide, and people have been really receptive to that.
And
Like, that's crazy.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, there are larger breweries out there. There are a few breweries in Green Bay.
Yeah, right. That's what I was like,
But and I even asked them and get this made and have it all across the state. And Corey was saying, "We like you. We want to work with you. We'll grow this together." And that means a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
so now we have to find you a connection to the brewers and get a brewer beer going.
Yeah, I am very open to that.
So anyone listening, if you have a connection, reach out to Joe.
Absolutely.
And another thing we wanted to talk about was your festival called Lager and Friends. Could you tell us a little bit about that festival you host?
Yeah, so this is very much a passion project. We make a lot of lagers here. I would describe Gathering Place as our beers as European inspired. So we make a lot of lagers, we make a lot of Belgian styles, but we still make coffee stouts and IPAs and things like that. But it was important for us, we wanted to put on a festival, and it was important for us to highlight being made here in Wisconsin. So Lager and Friends is a little different than a lot of other beer festivals. For one, it's an invitational. So we reach out to brewers, we keep the numbers small. So the first year it was 20, this past year it was 30. And those breweries, we really try to have half from Wisconsin and half from outside the state.
Oh, cool.
So each year we've done it, we've had brewers from coast to coast, from Portland and the San Francisco Bay Area to Boston and places in between. So we want to, and most of those breweries do not distribute in the state. So we want to bring in something that was truly new to a festival grower, that you can't get this beer here, but you can come try it at this festival. And so the other part of that is we wanted out-of-state brewers to come to Milwaukee and see the awesome beer scene that we have in the city, in the state. So the first one was in 2019, and then the 2020 and 21 versions had to switch to being virtual. And then we did it again this past June, and it was great to have it in person again. And in 2023, it will be in May. So we are just about to reach out to the breweries and start getting them lined up, and we'll do an announcement, kind of a save the date here in probably the next week or so.
Okay.
Nice.
So it's lagers are, like I said, this is kind of a passion project, but one of the things that we wanted to really highlight is lager is a very large umbrella term. Just like ales. You can have like a double IPA or like an Imperial Stout, and those are very different beers. So what's great about Lager and Friends is the brewers really responded by bringing things that were not typical. So it's not like we had 20 Pilsners. We had, we had Box and Double Box and Italian Pilsners and Czech lagers, and the beers ranged in color and style and alcohol content. Like, it truly did a great job of showcasing the umbrella of those beer styles within lager.
Well, it's cool, like you said, to kind of showcase what we have here in Milwaukee. Because, I mean, we are Brew City. We have a lot to be proud of, and your beers are fantastic. So to be able to host that and show what you have, but then also give people the opportunity to try beers from other states. So if they don't have the opportunity to travel themselves, they can still kind of taste that West Coast beer versus that Boston beer. It's kind of a nice opportunity that you bring here.
Thank you. It's also nice for the breweries for a couple of reasons. One, we handle all the logistics, so all they have to do is get us the beer.
Oh, nice.
So whereas because we built a custom draft system for the festival.
Wow.
Most of the festivals I attend, I have to lug my tent, I have to lug the kegs, the jockey box, the gas canisters, all that. All they have to do is show up. They show up 15 minutes before, they leave when it's done. We handle everything for them. So this is what happens when you have brewers planning a festival for other brewers, because we know all the annoying things about attending festivals.
True.
So we kind of take those off the table. The other thing is, some of them have used this as a testing run as to whether or not to send beer to Wisconsin.
Oh,
So I will say that when we first did this, Dovetail from Chicago did not distribute in Wisconsin. Now they do. I'm not saying it's because of Lager and Friends, but I think that had something to do with it.
Wow.
That their beers, they make fantastic beers, and they were really well received up here.
And maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like outside breweries out of the state probably want to be in our market. I mean, we are a heavy beer drinking community state, and to have your beer in the state, I feel like it would be helpful to other businesses.
Yeah, they seem to be doing well, as they should. They make great beer.
That's awesome. And then you also have something called the Pilot Batch Fridays.
Yes.
What are Pilot Batch Fridays?
Yeah, our Small Batch Fridays. That's a new program that we're starting this coming week, and it allows us to flex our creative muscles a bit by making a beer on our small brewing system, our pilot brewing system, that is just going to be a taproom only release. And so every Friday we'll be putting out a new beer to both taprooms. And when it's gone, it's gone. And it's a way for us to offer something new to our guests. It's something that won't get packaged, so it won't go out for distribution. It's truly just for the tap room. So my feeling is that if you're going to make the effort to go to a brewery, you should be able to try things that are different than what you could find in every grocery store. Yeah. So that is one way that we accomplish that. The other thing is it is a testing ground for us. We want to get feedback from our guests, and some of those beers will be scaled up, made on our main system, and go out into the market. It also allows us to make some recipes that are a little off the beaten path, or maybe uses some ingredients that would be very expensive to do on our main brewing system. As an example, a couple years ago we made a beer with pickled Japanese cherry blossoms,
Oh my gosh.
which are called Sakura. So we made a saison and put those in there. It was super good, but very expensive. So I can't imagine buying enough Sakura blossoms for a 15-barrel batch. So come to the tap room, and you can try those types of things there. So whether it's using unique ingredients, or whether it's changes to the brewing technique or fermenting at different temperatures, we can tweak some of these things. Another great example is people have been asking me for years to make like an English mild, and my response is always, I love those beers, I would love to make that beer, but I can't sell it. I'm not a good enough salesman to sell 15 barrels of English mild out into the market. But here's the other thing, nobody else is, because there's no one else in Milwaukee making those types of beer, because there isn't the demand for those styles of beer, even though they're wonderful, flavorful types of beer. This Small Batch Fridays program is a great place to be able to make those kinds of styles, to where I don't have to worry about it being on the shelf at a grocery store or sitting on a tap line in a bar. Like, you can come, people can try it. If they like it, they can have another glass. If they don't, we have other things on tap. But for those diehards that really love those styles of beer, we want them to come out and try them fresh, rather than having to rely on a beer that's imported and was on a boat, unrefrigerated. So we're really excited about it.
That's awesome. I like
And
that idea.
it gives you guys a chance to be creative too.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And we talked before about our head brewer, Corey. He's been, at this point, more than 20 years of brewing experience. I've been doing this for 15 plus years, and there's a lot of recipes that we've written, or those ideas you have while you're driving around. It's like, oh, that would be really great for a beer. Now we have the opportunity and pathway to do that.
Wow. Yeah, you have a lot of exciting things happening. Usually we kind of wrap up our episode like saying what's next, but I feel like you have so much excitement happening this year. Yeah, I cannot wait. I was super excited to do this interview because every time I'm on Instagram, I feel like there is something new you guys are doing. So
yes, I feel like our marketing associate is has trouble keeping up sometimes, and so we do have a lot. There's a lot we want to do. There's a lot that we want to say, and there was the back half of 22. Like, a lot of things happened together. Like, the same time that we were trying to launch the Cheesehead TV beer, we were also having the talks with Stockhouse, and so everything in a normal year, that would be the biggest thing we did, and this year it all happened at the same time. So we were trying to take a deep breath and trying to manage the craziness, and but we are very excited for the coming year and all the different things we have going on.
Absolutely.
Well, is there anything else that we forgot to cover or anything you wanted to add?
You guys were very thorough. You've done your homework. I would just say, like, we are a brewery that I feel we have grown every year, slowly and sustainably. And I think in some ways we kind of fly under the radar because our Riverwest location wasn't on a main street. And so I think it's one of those things, if you knew about us, you knew the types of beers, you knew the quality was there, but we're also not making the trendiest styles. And that's by design. You know, my feeling is, like, you can't be all things to all people.
Right.
And we know our lane. Like I said, making these European-inspired beers. And so we are perfectly fine to just keep plugging along in our corner of the world and making good stuff and building those relationships customer to customer or account to account. I think sometimes things that go up quickly tend to come down quickly, and we are building a foundation that we're going to be here for a while.
Well, we're really going to look for a brewer connection for you when brewer beer started. So you have something for each season of sports.
Yes, our brewing team might push back on that, but we welcome all kinds of new projects.
Oh, well, thank you so much for sitting and chatting with us today, Joe. We really appreciate it.
It's been fun. Thanks so much.
We've reached the end of this episode, but there's plenty more to keep you busy. For online source materials and proven case studies delivered right to your inbox, sign up for our mailing list by visiting marketthebrew.com. We'll see you next time on Market the Brew.